Hi friends, welcome back to the Infinite Library, and today we're doing a video that I've had planned to do for so long now. It's just been one I just haven't got around to until now. So today I'm going to go over with you all in today's video all of the book series that I am currently working on reading. I'm not going to go over every single series. I have a whole batch of series that I've started years and years ago, and I don't know if I personally want to continue those series at that point, but the series I'm going to be talking about are the ones that I definitely am wanting to read. And also, just to say, I'm going to have a separate video most likely where I go over all the manga series because there is a lot. So I'm just going to focus today on standard novels and graphic novels. Manga is going to have its own video because my gosh, there are so many series that I am in the middle of, and honestly I don't really have a big priority list for that at the moment other than 2 or 3 things that I know I'm currently reading. Just to make this video not as long as it needs to be, because it's probably still going to be pretty long, even just talking about the series that don't include manga. I'm not going to include them for this video. I was originally going to just show you my big series tracker spreadsheet, but I thought that might be kind of boring, to be honest. Also, it doesn't look particularly exciting, so I actually decided that I'm just going to show you all the series because it's more fun for me. It's probably going to be more fun for you reading, even if it does mean I've then been forced to go and get them all off the shelves, which honestly has been pretty good for me to work out what I have to read. So I'm not going to show you my tracker sheet, but I do have a series tracker sheet that I made myself. I've split this into currently 5 sections for all the series that I'm reading, and that is series that are ongoing, series that are undecided. These are all the ones that I maybe started them 10 years ago and read 1 or 2 books and then never finished it, and I don't know personally if I want to carry those on. I'm probably not going to talk about those in this video. I'm only going to tell you about the ones that are ongoing in this video. I also have tabs for unstarted series, which are generally books that I own, but they're for a series I haven't actually begun yet, and then they will probably get moved into ongoing once I start them. And then I have 2 tabs for completed series and for dropped series. The stats are quite interesting compared to what I have in each of these. I'm actually really shocked by how many series I've DNF'd. I didn't think there was going to be that many, but actually there's quite a number. And there's not as many completed series as I kind of thought there was going to be, to say how long I've been reading. Granted, I also read a lot of standalone books. So currently, the amount of completed series that I have read is 84. This, I believe, includes manga and graphic novels as well as regular novels. However, my currently ongoing series, not counting the manga because that would make the number much higher, is 91. So I currently have more series ongoing than I have completed, which is kind of ridiculous, and I want to do something about that. In terms of series that I am currently up to date on, so basically these are series that are still ongoing, but I am up to date in terms of publication. That is only 9. It's only 9. I can't even math this. There's only 9 series that I am currently up to date on. Granted, some of those have just gone off up to date because the new book has just come out for a couple of series, so they're back onto ongoing again. In terms of DNFs, I have DNF'd 109 series, which sounds bad, but when you think about it, I'm basically including every single series I've ever tried to read. So I'm talking about books where I read the first book and just don't want to continue because I didn't like it. I made a list for it just because it's good for me to know that if I'm ever looking at a series one day and I'm like, did I read that series? And I can check and be like, yes, I did. And I didn't like it because I DNF'd it. And then the final is currently undecided series. I have 60 series at the moment, which are series that I don't know if I want to carry them on or not. They're just not a priority for me. They may move into series I will read in the future, but they're not a priority. My priority is my ongoing series. So I had a look through all of these series the other day, and I basically picked out a bunch of ones that I want to consider my high priority series. These are the series I'm planning to work on in the next year or so. They're the ones I want to focus on because, as you know, if I have a lot to pick from, I get decision paralysis. So these are the ones that I either have a commitment to, that I really want to focus on them, I'm very excited for them, and some of them are also series that I've started fairly recently, and I don't want to get to the point where I've left them too long that I have to reread books to be able to finish the series. So I'm really trying to get better at that, because so many of my series are books that I've read maybe the first or the second book of, and to be able to continue that series, I've got to go back to the beginning and start over, because I just don't remember enough about the events. I'm not really focusing on those at the moment because I have a bunch of series that they're pretty high up in my memory, like I read them fairly recently, or they're still really clear in my mind. So those are the ones I want to focus on before I go back to those series that I know I'm going to have to reread. So I've picked 17 series out of the 60 or so, I think it was, which sounds a lot, but honestly, some of these series is a case of one book to be read and I finished the series. So it's actually not as bad as it sounds. None of these are particularly long series either. You will see more of those on my ongoing series that I go on to later in the video. But most of these series I've picked are a case of there is only one book, or there's like only a couple of books before I finish the series, or it's a series I just really want to prioritize. So I'm going to bring over the books and we'll go over them together. So these series are not in any particular order, by the way. I do have a kind of priority list in my mind, but not really. It's just a case of I want to focus on them. So the first series I feel like is kind of cheating, because it is a series I'm actually starting over from the beginning, and this is just a series I want to prioritize actually getting to this year, and it's the Percy Jackson book series. This is just the first 5 books I have here of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, I think it's called. I do have the books that go after that, but I want to split these down into like arcs essentially. So I'm just counting these first 5 books for this series so far. This is a case of I actually am rereading right from the beginning, because one, I read this one a very long time ago and I didn't read it correctly. So when I first tried to read this, I can't remember when it was, it had to be a couple of years ago, I read book 1 and then I read book 3 and then book 2, because I didn't realise that book 3 was not the second book, so I read them out of order. Yeah, I want to read it properly this time around. So yeah, this is 5 books. They're not massively long, it's like a middle grade series. I'm hoping I still like it, is also the thing, because I've been finding with more younger series that it's just not really working for me, but I'm hoping I will really like this one and I'll want to continue it, and the other series that Rick Riordan has written. This one I want to be focusing on this year. Next we have the Emily Wilde series. This is a nice case of I just have to read the most recent book that's come out. I've already read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I've read Map of the Otherlands, which is the second book. I just haven't read the third and final book in this series, which is Compendium of Lost Tales. This is a light academia fantasy with a little bit of romance in there, with a Grumpy Sunshine relationship following our academic Emily Wilde as she is kind of investigating the lore around fairies in the world that she lives in. I really love it. It's a good series. It's not a 5-star series, unfortunately, but I've given both book 1 and book 2 4 stars, and I'm really excited to finish this series off because I think it's going to be really good. And I'm kind of glad this is a finished series, even though I would also be very happy just to keep on reading more books in this series because I really love it. Next is, I believe, a completed duology. I'm noticing this thing lately that a lot of books coming out are being duologies rather than trilogies, and I kind of love it, not gonna lie. That is for The Secrets of the Nile series by Isabel Ibanez. I read the first book, What the River Knows, last year, and then I picked up the sequel, Where the Library Hides, not that long ago. I think it was released last year, towards the end of the year or something, or maybe earlier this year, and I really enjoyed this. It wasn't like amazing, but I had a good time with it. And this is an Egyptian, it's more of an adventure than I would say a romantasy. There is some romance in there, but it's very much more of a mystery adventure sort of book. But yeah, I really liked this one and I really want to carry on the series. and I believe it is finished with this book. So again, a series where I only have the one book to read. Next we have an ongoing series. So this is me just getting up to date essentially with a series, and that is the Prince of Sin series by Kerry Maniscalco. I read Throne of the Fallen last year and I really loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It was like my best romantasy of last year, and you know I'm not a big romantasy fan, but I adored this. And then I have picked up Throne of the Secrets, which is the sequel. They're sequels, but not in the case of that. It's basically a different couple each book, I think it's going to be. But yeah, I really loved this, so I hope I'm going to love this one just as much. And yeah, once I read this one, I actually have this on audiobook as well, which I may go with because I really enjoyed the audiobook for Throne of the Fallen, and this is an up-to-date series. They're quite chunky as well for romantasy. Next is another series that I did not know was going to be an ongoing series until very recently. I thought this was going to be 2 books and we were done. But no, this is Iron Widow. Also, I think it's just called the Iron Widow series, this one. But I read Iron Widow a few years back when it first came out. Absolutely adored it, loved it, 5 star. I keep meaning to get to Heavenly Time, which is the sequel. It came out at the very end of last year. Just haven't got to it yet. It's quite a bit chunkier as well than the first one, as you can see. But yeah, I am dying to get to this. I've heard mixed things about it, so I'm trying to go in with low expectations, but I am dying to get back to the series. But it is a case of I'm going to have to reread the first book because it's been so long since it came out and we got the second book that I really need to refresh my memory on the story. So not a bad thing either, because I'm very excited to reread it. But that is honestly one of the only reasons why I haven't got to this yet, is because I do need to reread Iron Widow as well. And yeah, this will then bring me to being up to date. But there is going to be another book coming out at some point in the future. Next is the Crimson Moth series. I don't actually have my copy of the Crimson Moth with me, but a friend is reading it at the moment. But it is a completed duology, came out earlier this year, the last book. I read the first book in like February, March, really enjoyed it. Really solid, again, like romantasy, really fun. I love the characters, I love the game of cat and mouse that they played. It is about a witch who pretending to be just like an ordinary debutante while she is rescuing other witches at night, and a man who is a witch hunter because witches are outlawed in this land. But it was really fun, dying to get to the sequel, The Rebel Witch, and then this will be a completed series. Next we have a series that honestly wasn't even really on my radar to carry on with until this year, and that's The Hunger Games. I obviously read the first 3 Hunger Games book back in the day, and then Sunrise and the Reaping came out, and I was really excited for this because this is about Haymitch, who is the mentor of Katniss and Peter in the original series. However, I'd never really been bothered about reading the book that was kind of sat in between these books, which is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. However, I did just very recently finally sit down and listen to it on audiobook. I'd heard very bad things about it, and I actually quite enjoyed it. I didn't like the very last part of it. I kind of got bored with what happened in the latter part of the story, but overall I really did enjoy that one, which was a nice surprise. Now I only have the new book to read, Sunrise and the Reaping. Definitely going to be getting to this as soon as I can. Essentially, I basically heard that it has wrecked everybody, and I am ready to be read by this series again, because honestly, I hadn't read these in years. And then reading Ballad, which probably is the least good of all the books in the series, is still a good book. Suzanne Collins is such a good writer, and she has so many good things to say, and I am just so ready to go back into this world again. Next, we have a very recent read, and the reason why I'm prioritizing it is because I want to finish it whilst it's still fresh in my memory, and that is the series Bonesmith. It's actually called Bonesmith, sorry. I believe it is called House of the Dead. And this is a duology, completed duology. It came out a couple of years ago, I think, this one, and then it has a sequel as well. And I read this very recently for, I believe, the 3rd episode of Treasure or Trash, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't really go into any expectations. I was just expecting a fantasy, probably with a lot of romance, but honestly, there wasn't as much romance as I was expecting, and I had a really good time with it. It's a really solid fantasy, and it was less horror and gothic as I was expecting. So I'd say for those people that were kind of avoiding this book because they think it's a horror, it's really not. It's just got some gothic trappings because the main character uses bone magic because her house does that, and then there are other people that use different types of magic, so you have like iron magic, gold magic, that kind of thing. But yeah, really good book. Had a good time with it. It was just kind of a fun adventure. I'm really in the mood for that at the moment. I don't actually own the second book yet, which is Ghostsmith, but we'll be picking it up at some point in the future so I can finish the series. Next we have another fairly recent series. This was actually the book that I gave my very first 5-star of this year, and that is the Reaper series by Rin Chapeko. I read Silver Under Nightfall back in January. Really loved it. Can't wait to get to Court of the Wanderers, although I kind of also don't want this series to end because I love the characters so much. This is a vampire dark fantasy, very like inspired by Castlevania. It has a polyamorous romance through it, a lot of political stuff, and I just had a really good time with it. It was just exactly what I wanted it to be, and I loved it. Definitely want to read more about this author. But yeah, I love this so much. I really hope Court of Wanderers kind of lives up and to the first book and has a really satisfactory conclusion. Speaking of more dark fantasy, because I'm reading a lot of those at the moment, I really want to go back to the Gideon the Ninth series, especially because I believe there is maybe only one more book to come out in this series. Could be wrong. But I read Gideon the Ninth a few years back now with my book club. Really enjoyed it. It's one of those that I maybe didn't like love on my first read, and then it really stuck with me. This is a sci-fi dark fantasy kind of murder mystery, which I was not expecting, and I had a really good time with it. It's really fun. I loved the murder mystery aspects, and I really loved like the crazy cast of characters that we got. I am going to have to reread this one, however. Even though I do actually remember quite a bit, I just want to reread it because it was so fun. And then I have the 2 books that came after it, which is Harrow the Ninth and Nona the Ninth. I believe the 4th book is going to be Electo. Really do want to carry on this series because I had such a good time with Gideon. Next, we have a book series that is just about to be completed, I believe. I think the 3rd and final book is either like just out or it's about to come out, and that is the Fallen God series by Hannah Kaner. I read Godkiller last year, really quite liked it. This was a book club book. I enjoyed how short and compact this was for a fantasy because I was struggling a lot with epic fantasy at the time because it was just so dense, and this was just the perfect length. I had a good time with it. I liked the characters. I haven't picked up the second book yet, Sunbringer, but I'm going to do that soon. I don't think I need to reread Godkiller for this one. I think the details are still fairly fresh in my memory, but enjoying the series and want to finish it off whilst it's still fresh in my memory, basically. Another series I want to try and prioritize sooner rather than later whilst the details are fairly fresh in my memory is the Red Queen's War series by Mark Lawrence. I really like Mark Lawrence. I've read his Prince of Fools series. I do own his like books library, hidden library series, whatever it is. I haven't read it yet. But last year when I went to Cimera, I'm starting another one of his series, which is this one, Red Queen's War. So this is Prince of Fools. I really enjoyed this. This is kind of like grim dark fantasy, but with a good amount of comedy in it compared to Prince of Fools, which is much darker. The main character is more comedic in this one, so it's a bit more light-hearted, even though it's still fairly dark. It's set in the same world, I believe, as Prince of Fools. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. It was kind of like an odd couple pairing throughout, and I want to, again, carry this on whilst it's still fairly fresh in my memory. It's a trilogy. Just want to prioritize it, basically. The series that I've just started, meaning to get to for ages, is Caraval. I read this quite recently. I think it was, again, for an episode of Treasure or Trash. I want to say episode 2, I think it was, and not gonna lie, I mainly read this because I want to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. But the premise for this one also sounded really good because it's like circuses and stuff which I love, and I really enjoyed this book. I'm really happy to say I gave it like a mid to high 4, I think. I'm not crazy about the next book particularly, which I think is called Legendary, because I don't love the protagonist in that book, but she could redeem herself, so we'll see. But yeah, this was a really good time. This is a 3-book series, I believe, as well as a novella or short story collection that came out quite recently. And yeah, again, want to read this, like, one, because I really enjoyed it, but again, whilst like the world building and the lore is still fresh in my mind. And next, an ongoing series, which I am gonna have to reread the first book for because it's been so hecking long, and that is the Villains series by V.E. Schwab. This was actually my first V Schwab book I read Vicious, and I absolutely adored it. This was a 5-star book. I haven't got around to reading Vengeful yet, but I know that she is currently working on the 3rd, and I assume final book in this series. This is kind of like a anti-superhero book. It's about these 2 guys, and they get like superpowers through some experimentation they do, and we actually are following the one who was considered the super villain in this series, but I really loved it. I'm a big fan of B. Schwab, and yeah, can't wait to get back to this world, to be honest. Right, we are almost there with my priority books. It's the second to last series, and one that I don't know if I'm going to love this series carrying on, because I've heard such mixed things about it. But I do want to get back to the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros. I really surprisingly loved Fourth Wing. It was a 5-star. I just had a really good time with it. It was probably like the first romantasy I read I actually enjoyed. And I've had Iron Flame sat on my shelves for ages. I don't think I need to reread Fourth Wing, thankfully, to get to Iron Flame, but I think I need to get to Iron Flame soon. Otherwise, I am going to forget stuff. Obviously, the new book has just come out, Onyx Storm, as well. I think it's a continuing series as well. I'm not sure, but I've heard mixed things, so I think me reading Iron Flame will determine for me if this is a series I'm going to continue or not. But I'm hoping I will, because I just had a good time with this. I loved the dragons so much. I surprisingly liked the romance, which is very not me, but I did. And yeah, this really got me in the mood to read like dragon books again. Hopefully I will actually get to it soon. And then the final series I am prioritizing is actually a series I don't own all the books for, and it is an ongoing series, and I'm probably actually going to do a whole video dedicated to this series where I read through them all, because they're all quite short. And that is the Wayward Children series by Shauna Maguire. I have only read the first book in this series, Every Heart a Doorway. It was one of my very first book club books, and I just adored this. This was just perfect for me. I love the writing, I love the world building, I love the characters. It was just perfect. So I'm dying to carry this on, and I just have not got around to it. It's literally my only excuse. I have a bunch more books in the series, but I don't have them all, unfortunately. Some of them are kind of hard to get hold of, and they're kind of expensive for novellas, unfortunately. But yeah, I've read Every Heart a Doorway, and then I own the second book, which is Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I own Beneath the Sugar Spy, which is the 3rd book, and then I have a big gap, and then I have like 2 other books that are much later in the series, which is Where the Drowned Girls Go and Lost in the Moment and Found. This is a portal fantasy kind of series about these children that have gone into like magical lands, like Alice in Wonderland style, and have come back, and how they are coping with the world. And they all stay at this Wayward Children's like house, essentially, to help them adjust. And yeah, really loved it, and I've been saying I wanted to get to this series properly to read it for so long now. I just need to do it. So that was the 16 series that I'm going to be trying to prioritize. 16, not 17, sorry. I forgot I took one off because I didn't really want to prioritize it right now, which means I have another 68 ongoing series to talk to you about. So I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible, because that's a lot of books. Let's go. So first we have the Sandsea trilogy by Chelsea Abdullah. This is an ongoing series. The second volume has just come out. This was a series I was up to date on. The first book was The Stardust Thief. Ashfire King was delayed quite a bit, but it has now finally come out. I haven't actually got my copy yet because I pre-ordered either the Fairy Loot special edition or the Illumicrate. I can't remember who did it. But yeah, ongoing series. I need to reread The Stardust Thief, unfortunately, before I get to the new book, because I mistakenly started the City of Brass series not that long after I read the first book, and now the 2 books are just mixed up in my head. So I need to reread this series, but I really enjoyed The Stardust Thief. It was a 5-star book for me. It's an Arabian fantasy series. Really enjoyed it. Next we have the Simonverse series by Becky Albertalli. I've entered the first book, which is Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. I remember quite liking it. It was a while ago. I don't actually know if this is a series I'm going to fully continue. Yeah, I enjoyed Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. It is a contemporary queer book, and I have Leah on the Offbeat, which I believe is following Simon's friend, who is bisexual, I want to say. And there are 2 other books in the series. There's The Upside of Unrequited, and there is a short novella called Love Creekwood. I will read those if I like the Leah on the Offbeat book. Next, wildly shifting tone here. As you'll see, I'm just going down my spreadsheet in like all of alphabetical order, so there is no order to this. other than that. But we're going to The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I read The Handmaid's Tale a long time ago, really liked it. The Testaments is now out, so I do want to try and get to that at some point to see what it's like. I believe it is completed. I don't think she's writing more in the Handmaid's Tale universe. Obviously, there's a TV series as well, which I do really want to watch. Next, we have Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I really enjoyed Legends and Lattes. It's a very cute, cozy fantasy with some queer elements into it. And I do own the prequel, Bookshops and Bone Dust. Just haven't got to it yet, so we'll get to it at some point. Next is a series I very recently started. This is the Shadow of the Leviathan series by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is a adult fantasy mystery series with like set in this really cool magical world, and it's kind of like a Holmes and Watson sort of pairing. Really enjoyed the characters. It was a 5-star book for me with The Tainted Cup, and A Drop of Corruption has just come out, so I'm dying to get to it. I just don't own it yet. Next, we have the Blood Debts series by Terry J. Benton Walker. I read the first book, Blood Debts, for my YA fantasy Goodreads challenge last year, and I quite liked it, so I do want to read the second book, Blood Justice. This is a New Orleans set contemporary fantasy about black witches. It was really good, lots of family stuff, and I enjoyed, so yeah, definitely want to carry that on. Next, a very old series by Holly Black. This is Curse Workers. I read White Cat years and years and years ago, really loved it. Never carried on the series. I recently picked up Red Glove, which is the second book, and I do need to reread White Cat, however, because I don't remember very much of it, but it's a completed 3-book series, so I would like to get to that at some point. Next, we have Gemma Doyle by Libby Bray. This was a book I read in my teens. The first book was A Great and Terrible Beauty. It's a historical fantasy, and I remember really liking it, but I don't remember much else about it. And then I happened to find the next 2 books in the series when I was at Barter Books recently, so that has just made me want to go back and actually finish the series now, essentially. Next, we have the Daevabad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. This is The City of Brass is the only one I've read so far. I wasn't crazy on it, but I want to give it another chance because I think I wasn't in the right mindset for it. Completed trilogy, adult fantasy. I think it's adult, it might be YA actually. But yeah, it's an Arabian fantasy. I am up to date on her other series because there's only one book out at the moment, which is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, which I much preferred. That was a 5-star book for me. I adored it. Can't wait for the next book, but there's only one out. So yeah, I should really go back to The City of Brass at some point and reread that and try the series again. Next, we have Wranglestone by Darren Charlton. This is a YA horror apocalypse zombie queer book. Loads of buzz-like words going on there. I read Wranglestone and I was not in the right mindset. I wasn't really paying attention when I was reading it. So I remember not loving it, but I also could tell it was me, not the book. So I want to go back and reread Wranglestone and then pick up the sequel, Timberdark. Next, we have the Wayfarers series by Becky Chambers. I believe there is 4 books in this series at the moment. They're not necessarily like following on storyline. I think we follow certain characters throughout, but this is kind of like seen as like a cozy sci-fi found family kind of thing. I think there's 4 books. I've read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I quite like. Would like to get to the others at the moment. I think the second book is called A Closed and Common Orbit, then it's Record of a Spaceborne Few, and then The Galaxy and the Ground Within. Next, we have the Last Hours series by Cassandra Clare. This is the only series by Cassandra Clare that I want to keep reading. I haven't got to yet. I dropped Swordcatcher because I did not enjoy that series, unfortunately. But I did really enjoy the first book of The Last Hours, which starts a Chain of Gold. This is set just after the Infernal Devices, following like descendants, that kind of thing. So we're in kind of like a Victorian setting, which I really enjoyed with the Infernal Devices. And I really enjoyed Chain of Gold. I just haven't got around to finishing the series off yet. There's 2 more books, Chain of Iron, Chain of Thorns. Also, sorry, I forgot there is one other Cassandra Clare series that I haven't finished, but that is her writing with Holly Black, and it is the Magisterium series. This is kind of a middle grade fantasy, but I really enjoyed it when I read the first 3 books. There are now 5 books in this series. I just didn't get around to reading the last 2 books essentially at the time. I do own them all now, so I would like to get to them. Then we have another YA, but this one is a queer one. This is Nemesis by April Daniels. I think there's just 2 books in this at the moment. This is about a trans teen who accidentally ends up getting superhero powers and has to deal with that. The first book is Dreadnought and the second book is Sovereign. Quite liked it, even though it was still very YA, and would like to continue it though. Next we have The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. This is a YA fantasy. It's not amazing, but I had a really good time with it. And it was just like a fun palate cleanser kind of book. I read the first book and I own the second book. I don't think I own the third book yet. Actually, maybe I do, because I think I got the special editions for them all. But yeah, it's a completed trilogy now, so I would like to go back and actually finish that series at some point because it was fun. Then we have the Chemical Garden series by Lauren DiStefano. This was a YA series that I read a while ago now, and I felt very mixed about it, I've got to say. It's kind of a dystopia set in this world that's kind of a little bit Handmaid's Tale, to be honest. I really enjoyed the first book, Wither, and then I read the sequel, Fever, and I didn't really like it, unfortunately. It got really, like, weird and I wasn't keen on what was happening. But there is a third book called Sever, which I would like to try, so I will probably have to reread the whole series at this point because my memories are very scatty. Then we have a very obscure series. It's probably not a good series, to be honest. I just have really good memories of the first book, so I want to like carry it on. This is a series called The Dowser. It's an urban fantasy series by Megan Siana Doige, I don't know how to pronounce her name, sorry. It has got 9 books in the series, but none of them are particularly long. The first book was called Cupcakes, Trinkets and Other Deadly Magic. It is about a witch that works in a cupcake shop, and I think there's like a murder, so it becomes a murder mystery, as is often the case with urban fantasies. I really enjoy that kind of thing, and I used to read a lot of them, and I kind of want to get back into it again. So yeah, there is quite a few books in this series, and I would like to try and carry it on to see if it is as good as the first one was, and reread the first one, because maybe it wasn't that good. I just enjoyed it at the time. Then we have another bit of a random one here, but Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. I really enjoy these stories. I've read a whole bunch of various short stories, and I read the complete adventures of Sherlock Holmes, but I know there are actually 9 specific books in this series, so I actually want to read them all properly at some point, starting with A Study in Scarlet. So yeah, those ones I want to get to at some point. Then we have a series which was a childhood favourite for me. One of my best friends, bless her, she bought me all the books like a few years back now, because it was a series that is out of print and I had to get rid of them, unfortunately, when I moved abroad for a little while. They were only available from WH Smith back in the day. This is a Circle of Magic series by Deborah Doyle and James MacDonald. It's a wizard school kind of thing, but yeah, I really loved it. Like, this for me was what people like really loved Harry Potter, and I want to go back to it and see if I still really love it. I read all the books apart from the last book in the series, and I now own them all, so I can read them. I'm probably going to do a video reading the whole series. It's 8 books in total, starting with The School of Wizardry, ending with Voice of the Ice. It is a middle grade fantasy, but I'm hoping nostalgia will really pull me through on this one. Then we have a fantasy series that, again, I'm probably going to have to reread the first book of, unfortunately. I think I read it last year, really enjoyed it, and I didn't pick up the next book again in enough time. But it's The Belgariad by David Eddings. The first book is Porn and Prophecy. It is a complete 5-volume series. I've also read, like, randomly, the very first book I read by him was like a prequel sequel called Belgarath the Sorcerer, and I really enjoyed that one. So I read that ages ago. I do think I still own it, maybe? I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I've slowly collected all 5 volumes from various charity shops when I found them, so I would like to actually read that series. It's a very old style fantasy, but I found it to be a very cozy read. And even though, like, it's very tropey, it's very traditional, I just really liked it anyway, so I would like to carry on. Also, in more classic fantasy, we had The Rift War Cycle by Raymond E. Feist. I read the first 3 books in this series, which is Magician, which I think was actually split into 2 books, Apprentice and Master, and then Silverthorn. And there are 31 volumes in this series. So it's a very long series, but I really remember enjoying those first 3 books a lot. So I would like to carry that series on at some point. Then we have the Deathless series by Namina Thorne. This is a more recent one. It is a African fantasy series. First book is called The Gilded Ones. It is a complete trilogy. I do own the second book, but I don't think I own the third book yet. probably gonna have to reread at this point, but I remember really enjoying it. A very recent one that I started actually is the Great Mythology series by Stephen Fry. It's actually non-fiction, believe it or not. I have a non-fiction series on this list. I am probably gonna audiobook all of these because it's Stephen Fry and he audiobooks so well for these. But basically this is him like telling you all about Greek history, and I love that. So I read Mythos recently, really enjoyed that, and I own Heroes and Troy as well. I just haven't got his final book in the series, which is Odyssey. So I'm gonna get to those at some point. Next, we have The Sisters of Dawley. This is by Alison Greaves. I read this in the very first episode, Treasure or Trash. Felt mixed about it, but I do want to carry it on to see where it's going. The first book is Welcome to Dawley Hall. The second book is Secrets of Dawley Hall. It's an ongoing series because it's kind of written online, I believe. I don't know if there's a physical copy yet of Secrets of Dawley Hall, but I am going to look into that and we'll pick it up at some point. Next is another series that is incredibly long and ongoing, and it's one I'm going to hopefully do a video focused on purely in the future, and that is the Anita Blake series by Laurel K. Hamilton. Urban fantasy from like 10-15 years ago. Loved this series. I've heard it got worse than the further on it got, unfortunately, but I really adore this series, so I want to finally try and get up to date on it. But it is about a vampire hunter called Anita, and she ends up kind of getting caught up in various murder mysteries. She kind of like kills various monsters and like exorcises ghosts and that kind of thing, but she ends up getting caught between this like vampire lord of the city and this werewolf guy, and I believe it gets very polyamorous later on, which I'm fully down for. But yeah, I've heard it devolves a lot into just smut and romance later on, which I'm not crazy about, but I was really enjoying this series. There are currently 28 volumes in this series. I believe I read the first 9 books, so I will be rereading this fully from the beginning. Fun fact, there's also a graphic novel series for it, which does like a prequel and the first book, I think. Next we have, see, I thought this was a complete series, but I think it might still be ongoing, and that is the Alex Rider series by Anthony Horowitz. I loved these books when I was a teenager. Older kid teenager, this was again one of my favourite series, so a big nostalgia thing for me. I believe there are 14 books at the moment, and I've read the first 9 of them, and that was when I think there was a big break after that point and I just never caught up. Really good series. Has a film adaptation of the first book. I think there's also like graphic novel adaptations. Really fun series about a teen spy, and gets a lot darker than you would think it would. Then we have a series that hasn't got good ratings, but I remember reading the first book and really loving it, but I'm gonna have to reread it to check how I feel about that, and that is the Ethical Vampire series by Susan Hubbard. This is a YA fantasy. The first book is called The Society of S. Really enjoyed it. Don't remember much about it though. So there are 2 other books in the series, The Year of Disappearances and The Season of Risks, so I'm probably just going to reread The Society of S first to see if it was good, and then I'll carry on the series if so. Next we have another doozy long classical fantasy series, and that is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. This is a complete series of 14 volumes. I think they gradually get longer and longer and longer. They're big bricks, some of them. I read the first 5 volumes and then got halfway through volume 6, I think, before I put it down, and I have been working on getting the rest of the books physically so that I can read the series like fully in the future, and I've got almost all of them now. I think I'm missing just 1 book. Might be book 11, I can't remember, but I've almost got them all. Really long series. Also has a TV show which is slowly adapting some of it, which I quite enjoyed actually. I may even go audiobook for this one, I'm not sure, just because it is so long, but it's one of my best friend's favourite series of all time, and I do want to finally get around to finishing this at some point, but no time soon. Another urban fantasy series that I read back in the day, which probably hasn't held up very well like Anita Blake, is the Dark Hunter series by Sherilyn Kenyon. These are very formulaic kind of romance urban stories. Each book is like a different couple. There is an overarching storyline, but it's a slow burn of an overarching storyline. There's also an ongoing series, I believe. I think we're at like 30 volumes at this point. But I had a really good time with it, and honestly, this is nostalgia for me. They're not really good books, I don't think, but I really enjoyed them. Me and two friends read them a lot when I was in college. So yeah, I do just want to read them basically at some point. I think I read like the first 15 volumes and then just a random selection. Like, you don't need to really read them chronologically because of how they are. I want to like go on because it was really getting intriguing where the overarching storyline was going. I want to see what's happening with that. There's also a spin-off series which is following one character called Nick, which I think is actually YA. And I read the first book of that and I wasn't crazy on it, but if I do like the Dark Hunter series, I may go and like check out the Nick series as well. Next, a bit of a weird one because this book has one book in this series that I absolutely hated. It's also not really a series in the traditional sense, but it's Holly, Give Me Books by Stephen King. There are 3 books currently out, and I know there's another book coming out in the future. I'm only including this with the caveat that I'm not reading any more books about Holly, most likely, after I've read one. I've actually read these totally out of order as well. There are 3 books, I believe, that Holly appears in, possibly more, because 4, because I think Mr. Mercedes, she potentially appears in as well. But there's The Outside, If It Bleeds, and Holly. I read If It Bleeds and I quite liked it. I read Holly, hated it. But I have The Outsider, and I've heard really good things about that. So I want to read The Outsider, and then I'm probably done with Holly as a character in Stephen King books. I just don't really love her that much. But I will read The Outsider because I've heard that book's really good in general. Then we have 2 very short duology series all by the same author. This is middle grade fantasy, again an old nostalgic favourite for me, and both of these series are by Gail Carson Levin. The first is Ella Enchanted, which you may have seen the movie of with Anna Hathaway. The book is much better, but I do have a soft spot for the movie with how ridiculous it is. But yeah, Ella Enchanted is one of my favourite childhood books, and I only found out recently that there is a sequel of sorts called Ferris, which I think is probably not a traditional sequel, but like something just set in the same world. And then there is also another series that she wrote called The Two Princesses of Bamar. I've read the first book, which is called The Two Princesses of Bamar, but I've never read the second book, which is called The Lost Kingdom of Bamar. So I would love to go back and reread those as like nostalgic favourites. Then we have a YA sci-fi called Warcross by Marie Lu. I think this is a completed duology. I read the first book, which is Warcross, and I just haven't got around to finding a copy of Wildcard, which is the second book in the series. Then we have another trilogy. This one is a Victorian fantasy queer trilogy called The Last Binding by Freya Marske. I read The Marvelous Light, really enjoyed it. I do own the second book, A Restless Truth, but I just haven't got to it yet. And then their third book came out recently called A Power Unbound. These are all different couples, but all set within the same world, and they all kind of know each other. And yeah, I really enjoyed the first book, so want to carry on. Then we have The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meir. This is a sci-fi, but it's retellings of fairy tales in like a different dystopian sci-fi setting. I read the first book, Cinder, like ages ago, which is like Cinderella is an android and a mechanic, I think, and I really enjoyed it. And then I just never got around to carrying on the series. I'm dying to get hold of like these special editions they have of them, I think on a Limerick. But yeah, there's 4 volumes in the series. Cinder, which is following Cinderella, Scarlet, which I think is Red Riding Hood, Cress, which I think is Rapunzel, and then Winter, which is Snow White. A series I've been meaning to get back to for ages, but I just really enjoyed the first book, and I'm gonna have to reread it again, which I'm not mad about. Then we have The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini, which as of not that long ago was a completed series. It was a 4-volume YA fantasy originally. I say YA, it's probably more middle grade at this point. At least I was around that age when I read them. This is a book about dragons. I really enjoyed them at the time, but I think I would find the romance elements really annoying now. But the author did just come out very recently with a book about one of the kind of side character, but like kind of like the other protagonist who was an antagonist, called Murtagh, and that is the name of the book. So I do want to try and read that, but it's also been so long since I read the original series. May have to do a reread as well. Then we have what is technically one of my favourite series of all time, even though I don't love every single book in that series. And this is unfortunately now a complete series because the author passed away a few years ago. This is Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. She is one of my favourite authors of all time. But she is hit and miss sometimes with her books, I will admit. So yeah, I've actually almost finished the series. There are 13 volumes in this series and I've only got the last one to read. I DNF'd the penultimate book, but I think I want to go right back to the beginning and like read it fully all the way through before I get to that final book. Something I'll probably do a whole series read along video for, I think, because I just have so much love for this series, even if I don't love all the books. But I have good memories of like most of these books, and they were something I read like as a teen, like through all my teens, and I adore them. Also really love the movie and the new TV series, so just a big vampire fan in general. Also by Anne Rice, I have another series of hers that I want to carry on reading. That is Ramesses the Damned. I've only read The Mummy in this series, but she has 2 more books, The Passion of Cleopatra and then The Reign of Osiris, which was actually her last book that she wrote before she passed away. So I do want to go and finish that series. I did also read 2 of the 3 books in the Mayfair Witches series, but I really wasn't a fan of that series, unfortunately, so I actually DNF'd that one. I may try it again, but I think my reasons for DNFing are still gonna be like deal breakers for me, in that I hated all the incest stuff that happened in that series. But I know they're kind of like getting a resurgence of popularity again recently, probably because of the TV series, and they've got new covers and stuff, but I don't know, I just wasn't crazy in that series. But let me know if you did read The Mayfair Witches and you think it is a really good series overall, and maybe I'll be convinced to give it another shot. Next we have another series by Rick Riordan. This is Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard. This is like a spin-off from Percy Jackson, except this is Norse mythology. I read the first book and honestly I kind of liked it a lot more than Percy Jackson, don't hate me. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I loved the main character so much more than Percy. But the first book of this is a trilogy, want to carry on. Then we have the Beneath Earth and Sky series by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is a complete trilogy. I read Black Sun. This is, I think, Indonesian inspired fantasy. It's also queer. Really loved Black Sun. Not heard great things, unfortunately, about the next 2 books in the series, but I want to carry on and see for myself. Then we have another massive fantasy series that I almost decided to try and read this year before deciding that maybe I just wasn't quite in the mood for starting a massive epic fantasy series. But that is the Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. This is the Cosmere universe. There are different arcs within it. I'm just choosing to class as one complete series rather than the bunch of series that kind of make it up, essentially, just for ease. There are, I believe, 31 volumes at current in this, and I have read 3 of them so far. I've read Elantris, I've read The Emperor's Soul, and I read The Final Empire, which is the start of the Mistborn series, and I really enjoyed all 3 of them. But I also read all of them a long time ago, so I am going to get back to this series at some point. I do in fact own the entire Mistborn trilogy part of it, but I'm not really in a rush, I've got to say, because it's so long and it's still ongoing, and it's probably going to be ongoing for quite some time. Oh, I also read Crest of the Emerald Sea. Sorry, I completely forgot that I had read that, which I didn't love, unfortunately. Then we have the Witcher series by, I'm going to butcher his name, very sorry, Andrzej Sapkowski. This is, I think, a Slavic author, so it's translated fiction. You may know it from the Witcher series, but it is also a book series. I believe this is complete with 8 volumes. I've got The Last Wish, which is kind of short stories, I suppose. It's very short, it's the smallest book. I quite liked it, and I enjoyed this series in general. I do own the video games, and have played a little bit of The Witcher 3. Yeah, I want to kind of read the actual book series as well, but not in a hurry because epic fantasy is just not really where my head is at right now. Then another old middle grade fantasy series. This is the Saga of Lartin Crepsley by Darren Shan. I love the Darren Shan series so much. Again, one of my favourite series when I was a teenager. This is a spin-off series following the mentor of the main character, Lartin Crepsley, who was a vampire. Yep, he was a vampire. I read the first 2 books in this series, and then I think the other 2 came out like when I was moving and all that, and I just never got around to finishing, unfortunately. I didn't love them as much as the main series, but I really enjoyed the character of Lartin Crepsley, so I want to see where this story goes, essentially. Then we have 2 series, all by the same author, who unfortunately did pass away this year, and that is L.J. Smith. They're not the most popular series, actually, that I'm currently reading. I'm not really fussed about reading Vampire Diaries, although I do want to watch the TV series, because I really enjoyed the first season of that. I read like the first book or so with the Vampire Diaries. I didn't love that one, unfortunately, but for me it's two specific series that I read when I was younger that I loved, and those are the ones I want to go back and finish. So there's the Night World series. These are all like YA fantasy, like mostly romance, to be honest. And that is 10 volumes. I read like, I want to say 5 or 6 of them. I think I do own them all now though, so I'm looking forward to having a reread. And then The Secret Circle, which is 6 volumes, which they have put together into like a bind up thing of like 3 volumes each. I read the first 2 books, absolutely adored them, and then never found the 3rd book. This was a case of all I had access to at the time was libraries, and my library never had the 3rd book in the series, and the 2nd book ended in a cliffhanger. But yeah, really enjoyed that. I know Secret Circle got a TV series, which wasn't great. I was really pissed off because they killed off what was my favourite character. Just nostalgic series, have not heard good things about them. I don't think they hold up. I did try another LJ Smith book, I think, last year at some point, and it was really bad, but do want to kind of go back and retry these series because I have so much nostalgic love for them. Right, we're getting to the end now. The Edge Chronicles, a middle grade fantasy by Paul Stewart. Really loved these books when I was younger. Never got around to finishing them, unfortunately. Again, a case of these were library books. I read them all out of order because it was just whenever I could find them. I've read, I think, like 6 books in this series, and there are 13 volumes in the series. Then we have the Bartimaeus trilogy by Jonathan Stroud. Fun fact, I actually bought this whole trilogy. Only read the 1st book, but I bought it primarily for research for my creative writing dissertation, because for my creative writing dissertation I was writing a book about a demon contractor. But for research I had to like read books that kind of fit into the genre and the style of what I was doing, and this did. So this is a trilogy. I read The Amulet Samarkand, and I do own the other 2 books. I just never got to them, but they were very fun from what I remember. Then we have the Burning Kingdom series by Tasha Sori. I think this is complete with 3 books, but I could be wrong. I read the 1st book, The Jasmine Throne, really liked it. Do own the 2nd book, still need to get hold of the 3rd book, but this is a sapphic Indian fantasy, and yeah, I really liked it. Then we have a series that I kind of just want to give a second chance because I've now read more by this author and I love the other stuff by this author, and that is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series by Laini Taylor. This is set in Prague. It is a YA fantasy about a girl who can like see monsters and stuff. 3 books. I loved the 1st book, read the 2nd book, hated it. So I never finished the series. I want to give it another try, and even if I still dislike the 2nd book, I want to at least try the 3rd book as well and see if like the series does kind of end well, even if the 2nd book was very slumpy for me. Then we have the Celestial Kingdom series by Su Lin Tan. This was actually the 1st book of this series. Daughter of the Moon Goddess was the very 1st book I read this year. It is complete with 3 volumes. It has 2 main volumes and then a short novella. I do own them all. I met her for an event earlier this year for the release of her new book Immortal. I really enjoyed Daughter of the Moon Goddess, so looking forward to carrying on that series, but I thought the 1st book was very like complete feeling, so I'm also not in a rush to get to the 2nd book. Then we have another all nostalgic series, another YA fantasy, and that is the Wicker series by Kate Tiernan. I think this is also called Sweep in America, but I have slowly been collecting all these books again. I now have the complete collection. There are 15 books in this series about a teen girl who gets involved in a coven. I really enjoyed it. I think I read the first like 6 books back in the day, but never finished it, so I would love to finish that now. The very last series that we have that I'm going to talk to you about is a book that is, I think it's still ongoing. It's getting a TV series soon. It's The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. I think it has 7 volumes at the moment. It might be finished now. I'm not entirely sure. I've only read the first one, which is All Systems Red, which I think I did by audiobook actually. And I really liked it. It was really good. So do want to carry on that series. It had the benefit of a lot of these books being like short novellas, and I think it's getting more into novel length now. But so those are all the books. I then have to talk to you about graphic novels, so I'll keep this very brief as well. I don't have that many graphic novels, to be honest, but we'll just go through them very quickly. So first we have A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That did have the movie, which is a guilty pleasure movie of mine. This is by Alan Moore. 4 volumes. I read the first volume ages ago, quite liked it, would like to go back to it. There's the Alex Rider graphic novels, which I think you may have heard me mention. 6 volumes, I think. Only read the first one. Are we seeing a pattern here? Then we have Clementine by Tilly Walden. This is based off the character from the Walking Dead video games, Clementine. This is kind of a sequel series about what happened to her after the end of the Telltale Walking Dead games. I read the first volume of this, really enjoyed it. Haven't got hold of the second one yet, and the third one is coming out. So I don't know if this is complete at 3 volumes. I think it might be, but that final volume is not out just yet. Then we have an old series, Fables by Bill Willingham, also kind of related to Telltale, because this is kind of the series that spawned The Wolf Among Us, which is a Telltale game I haven't played yet, because I wanted to read Fables first. I read the first volume, really liked it. Never got around to carrying on. 22 volumes in this series. Only read the first one. Then we have Lore Olympus by Rachel Smith. This is originally a webtoon, but it's being like put into bind-ups essentially at the moment. I think there are like 7, 8 or 9 volumes. I can't remember, but I've got the first volume, so I read that, but I have read much further into the webtoon, so I'm probably more around like volume 4 or 5, but I kind of like fell off a while back and I have no clue what's happening now with it. The Lucifer series by Mike Carey. This is a spin-off of the Sandman series. I read the first book. There are 11 books. A very short graphic novel series is Magical Boy by They Cow, or The Cow? I don't know how to pronounce their name, apologies. 2 volumes. I read the first one from the library and then I do own the second volume. I just haven't finished it yet. It's really good. A trans boy who has to become a magical girl. Then we have Nomen Omen. This is a 3-volume series by Marco B. Bucci. It's kind of like an urban horror. I read the first book and then for some reason my library only has book 1 and book 3 and not book 2. So I've not been able to finish it for that reason. Then we have Saga, which I believe is still ongoing. I read the first book and I didn't love it, to be honest, but I want to give this one another try because I've heard such good things about it. Then we have Something is Killing the Children by James Tynion IV. This is a horror. It's very like Buffy-esque to me from what I remember about it. I think it's about 7 volumes, but it's still ongoing. I've only read the first volume. Then we have Starfighter, which is actually a webcomic by Hamlet Machine, very old now. There are 5 volumes. I read the first 2 and then I never finished it, and I don't know if I can finish it because I feel like you could get physical copies of it and it's like out up front now. It's so old, but I would like to try and find this and finish it someday because the nostalgia for this series. The Supernatural comics by Peter Johnson. I collected these back when Supernatural was still in its heyday. There's 4 volumes. I own the first 2. Tea Dragon Society graphic novels, which I really, really love. I read the first one last year and adored it. There are 3 in this series by Kay O'Neill, who also did Princess Ever After, which you may have seen in my recent episode 3 of Treasure and Trash. Episode 2, sorry, Treasure and Trash. But yeah, really cute series about dragons that are being looked after who make different teas, and it's queer as well, and it's just adorable, and I love it, so I want to carry it on. The Dark Hunters are back again because they also have a graphic novel manga series. There was 5 of them, I think. I only ever read the first 2. Then we have The Umbrella Academy, which you may know from the TV series. We don't talk about the last season of the TV series. This is by Gerard Way and Gabriel Barr. I have the first 2 volumes, which is The Apocalypse Suite and Dallas. I just haven't got around to collecting the final 2, Hotel Oblivion and You Look Like Death. The next one, I used to be a big Marvel fan, believe it or not. And the thing that got me into Marvel was Spider-Man. And I really want to read the Ultimate Spider-Man comics by Brian Michael Bendis. It's complete at 22 volumes. I read the first one, really loved it. That was a long time ago, but I kind of still want to go back and do this at some point because I love Spider-Man. Then we have Wind by James Tynion IV, who I realise has been on this list already. He wrote 2 things, and this is an ongoing series, I think, at 3 volumes about Prince, and I really liked it. I only read the first book, but enjoyed it. And then the final series, we're going back to Marvel, believe it or not, and that is the Young Avengers series, specifically the 2004 to 2012 books in the series. This is complete at 7 volumes and I own the first 2. I really love the Young Avengers, and it's one of those things I really wish they'd done something with that in the Marvel universe. I would love to see them do it because I really love those graphic novels and they're some of my favourites in the Marvel universe. Whew, you thought I was done? I'm not done. I just have a couple more series I want to talk about, and those are the series that are still ongoing, but I am up to date on them, at least for now. So, of those series, we have Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. If you don't know what this is, I don't know what to tell you. Really, really good graphic novel series. I really love it. and I am up to date on it. Then we have the Her Majesty's Royal Coven series by Juno Dawson. We're getting the final book for this, I think. Private Rights, I think sometime this year, but I'm otherwise up to date with that series. Then we have what I think is going to be a series, but I don't know if we're getting another book, but like the first book said, there's another book coming, and that is the How to Survive series by Scarlett Dunmore. I read the first book of this last year. It's a YA horror. The first book is called How to Survive a Horror Movie, and it wasn't like amazing, but I enjoyed it enough that I will probably carry on. Yeah, a series that will hopefully have another book at some point in the future. Then we have the Summoner's Circle series by St. Gibson. The first book was Evocation. Not many people love this, but I really did. This is an adult, like, urban fantasy kind of thing that's got polyamory. We're getting the second book later this year, which is following another character. I think it's called Ascension. Then we have the Hierarchy series by James Islington. He wrote The Will of the Many. We're getting the second book, The Strength of the Few, at some point. I don't know if it's this year, it might be next year, but I really loved The Will of the Many and excited for the next book in the series. Then we have the Blood of Hercules series by Jasmine Maas. This is a Greek-inspired romantasy. Really loved the first book, even though I know it's kind of trashy. The first book is out only of that. The second book is coming out like around October or something this year, and I can't wait for it. Then we have a surprise series by Ava Reid with A Study in Drowning. She wrote A Study in Drowning, thought it was a standalone, then she announced that we're getting a sequel called Euphoria Dreaming, which is following the main guy's perspective instead of the main girl's perspective. Excited to see what she's going to do with that. I love Ava Reid, like rarely ever do I dislike a book by Ava Reid. Also another horror series by Bill Wood. He wrote Let's Split Up. This was a very like Buffy, Scooby-Doo inspired kind of book that I really enjoyed. It's a murder mystery that I think had some supernatural elements in it from what I remember, but there is going to be a second book in the series at some point. We haven't definitely got a date yet, but I'm very excited because I really did enjoy it. And I believe that is everything. That is all the book series that I am currently focused on reading. As I said, I have a whole bunch of ones that I'm not sure if I'm going to continue, but that is all the series that I am prioritizing to read, all the series I'm continuing to read. So yeah, let me know if there's any series in particular that you want to like maybe sway me more to read, or maybe not sway me to read. Maybe there's a couple of series there that you're like, don't bother, just drop it. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. And yeah, how many series do you have still ongoing? Is it as bad and shameful as mine? Definitely like doing this tracker has made me realize I need to sort of work on getting through some of these series, and that is one of my goals for this year, especially particularly with this priority series that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. So yeah, that is it for this video. I may do a follow-up of this in the future where I go over all the manga series. I may also, if it's something that people are interested in, do a follow-up where I briefly go over all the series I have completed and dropped, but I just wanted to get this one out for now, just so you can have an idea of what series are currently in my life that I am putting my time towards, so you have an idea of what books may also be appearing in future videos. So, as always, stay safe, stay cozy, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!